Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to our Zach and Aaron's awesome live show. Are we? No, we're not awesome. I'm sorry, our adequate live show. But I have to say, Aaron, I think we're really good at this. I think I'm ready to move us up from adequate to actually awesome.
Well, I think it helps that we've had some really good guests on the show the last few weeks. So we'll see how we do this week without those guests carrying us. But,
Yeah, last week's show, I got a lot of people comment on, tell me they were
Yeah.
pretty stoked on Mark and Greg, and we're gonna get Mark back on. Mark is really excited to do it. He has tons of cataract footage, tons of some creature craft footage from Mr. Keen, and he's wrapping his brain around it. And since the show, he sent me a bunch of emails of things he wished he had talked about more. I mean, he's full of information. So
his answers were always very thoughtful, and I could see how he'd have
Yeah.
more information. He thought about it more. He'd be like, "Oh, well, and this is also important. This is important." So
Yep.
that'd be fun to have him back on.
Yeah, and same thing with Greg too. It's great to have Greg on. I hope to see him back on. Greg's a really good boater. And like I said, thinking like about Greg is when he's doing class 3, he's pushing himself. He's flipping, he's surfing, he's challenging himself. And then when he's on class 5, he's taking it pretty seriously. He's just not messing around. So I think that's an important thing for people to see who want to get better. I mean, one way you get better is you practice class 5 moves in class 3.
Oh, yeah.
I think Greg's practicing class 5 moves in class 2. He's taking it to a high level.
So what do we got today?
This week, we got a couple of things. We have some flip and reflip video that was sent to us, and then a couple of YouTube videos on Blossom Bar rescues that people asked us to talk about. So it's raft flipping and rescuing and just dealing with kind of rafts or just stuck boats. And so that's this week. We do this show every week, 12:30 Pacific time, almost every Friday. So far, we haven't missed a Friday. I'm pretty proud of us. We're pretty good at this. We like to review our videos sometimes. Ideally, it's videos that people send us, like, hey, here's a video I want you to review. But also is interesting. If it's just you running class 2, we're not interested in it, right? We want to see something that creates discussion. So
I think, I mean, you learn more when someone makes a mistake than when things go right. I think that there's a lot more to discuss when something goes wrong, and to discuss how that happened and what happened. When everything goes right, some of those are good too, to say like, hey, these are good runs for sure.
Yep.
But yeah,
there's way more discussions when there's things that go wrong. If it's just like, oh, good, they're doing great. And sometimes like Barry's video that he sent us, we reviewed a while ago, is a lot of him doing amazing, and just seeing excellence is nice too. But that was Cherry Creek, so if you're doing great in class 5, we'd love to review that video and give you props and talk about how your oars need to be longer or whatever. But so some weeks we review our own videos, some other people's videos. This week we're gonna do a couple of just YouTube videos, things that I think are interesting. Don't forget to like this. Click that like button down there. Please subscribe. I just read an article about how to do better in YouTube, and subscribing makes a big difference. I'm trying to be a YouTube sensation. Aaron and I want to really grow this show. And so if you want to support us, hit that like button, hit that subscribe, and please comment. This is only fun for us if it's because Aaron and I talk all the time. It's if I can just call him and talk to him. So it's really fun if the audience out there is leaving comments and thoughts. So please leave comments, and those side discussions we have based on the comments are a lot of fun.
Yeah. I'm just gonna say one more time, please send us videos too, because if you don't send us videos, we end up watching video of Zach.
I almost went boating on the wind yesterday just to get video for the show, and I feel like we've seen me boating the wind too many times.
Oh yeah, definitely. We've had a lot of that. Oh, where are we here?
This is Crystal on the Grand Canyon.
Okay.
And so we're gonna watch a flip happen. So
I can already tell you his angle is terrible. Before we even started, his angle is not where it wants to be right now. Yeah, he's pulling upstream. Not good. Yeah, he's pulling against the V right now. Oh, yeah. Wow, that's a good serve. It's really stuck in there. Woo.
Yeah. What I was thinking about when I first saw this is if you were clipped onto this boat upside down, right? You're caught in a line or unlocking carabiner. That's bad news. Like this is a good reminder that with gear boats, you don't want a lot of loose lines if you can avoid it.
Yeah. And going down around the corner is not too good there too. That all those rocks in the middle. Hopefully the boat goes left of them.
So I think this is something I get asked a lot, Aaron. This is an 18-foot gear boat, upside down. What are some techniques to flip this thing back over?
Oh, we're talking about flipping boats back over.
Yeah, let's go. I mean, we can talk about that, or we can go back and talk about.
I think a little talk about angle at some point would be good in here.
Let's start with that then.
Yeah, because I think you could just tell, like, before he even started, just the angle his boat was pointing towards the middle of the river. He's trying to do an upstream ferry in high water, and that's not going to work very well. It works great, like on like the Rogue at 1,000 TFS, an upstream ferry works very well there because the current isn't that strong and the lateral waves aren't that big. But here, you just look before we even start and be like, oh, his angle is not where it needs to be, and he's not going to make it. Like, instead, his butt needs to be pointed towards the camera right now, basically. Right.
So when you're saying upstream ferry, that's a terminology that everybody knows. Yes. That means the boat's pointed downstream, but you're pulling upstream at some angle to the current to ferry.
Yeah. Or you could be pointed upstream and pushing upstream at an angle.
Yeah.
Either way would be an upstream ferry.
You're basically fighting the current.
Yeah.
So he's basically fighting the current, which a lot of people bag on that. Like, you never fight the river. There's times on technical, you have to do it, like especially on technical rivers. On big drops, there's times you have to do it, but in big water, it's hard to fight the current.
But the faster the river's moving, the less it does, right? And then you've got the problems with the features, the tracking of the raft. I think is a key term to talk about in this rapid is where that nose is pointed. That raft wants to go because there's less resistance on the front of the raft than there is on the side of the raft, right? So his nose is pointed towards the left side of the river, so that raft is going to want to go towards the left side of the river, and he's having to work against where the river wants to take that nose of the boat. Now, if he has the nose of the boat pointed towards the right side of the river, or the stern of the boat pointed downstream towards the right side of the river, then the boat's going to want to go to the right side of the river. So, yeah.
Aaron, what's the line here? It's obviously not to the hole. Where do you want to go?
Well, I think there's two great lines. There's a line where you do a downstream ferry pulling right of the hole, and I think he was set up in the right location at the top. If he had just turned his boat the other direction, it was like right there. If his butt is pointed towards the camera there, he'd probably miss the hole. Like he's entering in the right location. His angle isn't where it needs to be. So and maybe he hit something above there that we didn't see that spun his nose. Maybe he hit some slow water and spun around or something like that. But yeah, I feel like this is the classic crystal flip where people, as they're pulling in, they lose their angle, they pull too hard with their right oar, and they don't keep that butt going downstream, and they get spun, so they're pulling back upstream against the V. And we know the V is going to take you back to the middle, and so he's on that V, and he's pulling upstream, and he's going to end up in the middle of the river in that hole.
So let's talk technology or terminology again. Just quickly explain what you mean by downstream ferry.
Downstream ferry means in general, I feel like with an oar boat, in general, when you're talking about downstream ferry, you're talking about you're turning around and pulling, looking over your shoulder.
You're pulling downstream faster.
Pulling downstream. Yeah. So that way you can bust through those lateral waves. See, his boat's getting a lateral wave right there. And that wave is slowing down that boat going towards the right shore and pushing it back to the left and out to the middle. And if his boat is turned like, what would that be, 90 degrees, so the butt's pointing towards us, those lateral waves, his boat would go up and over him more because there's less resistance on the stern and the bow. And pulling downstream, you have a lot more power than pushing. Having said that, I see a lot of people who the people macho it and they push right. And pushing right actually works at certain flows pretty well because it's more about your angle than about how hard you're pulling.
Yeah.
And I think some people miss that with this move is that I still pull always, but I'm not pulling that hard. It's more about being in the right place, and then I have those pulls, and I have that extra force if I need it.
I think when we teach class 4 boating, we really focus on laterals are a big part, I think, of class 4 boating, is breaking through laterals, and you have to be perpendicular to them. So you can be perpendicular to them you can push through them, but you have a little less power, or you can turn around and pull downstream ferry backwards. And I think that's if you have, it's hard to look over your shoulder, but you have so much power and control when you're doing that. I think
and if you start to lose your angle one way or the other, you can do a hard pull backwards to get your angle back. Versus if you start to lose your angle when you're pushing, you try to push, you can't. So then you're going to pull back on that other oar. And what does that do? That slows you down and takes you back towards the middle of the river. So this is the classic Grand Canyon move here, though. Like almost every hard rapid is you're pulling to get out of that current. You're doing a downstream pull and getting yourself towards one side of the river or the other. So,
and again, what happens, just to reiterate this, is he's parallel to the lateral instead of perpendicular, and that just funnels him back to the middle.
Yeah.
Why is it not playing? There we go. So it's hard. It's just funneling him back to the V.
Yeah.
There's a whiffed or stroke too. I mean, that's an immediate flip of an 18. And
the hole is really sticky at the flow. He hit it there. Like that's kind of a mean flow for it. I feel like some flows it's a little nicer than that. But there's another. Let's talk about line, Zach. The classic line's pulling right. There's also a nice line going left of it at lower water where you can go left of the hole, and it's really fun, kind of out in the middle. You just have to worry about the rock.
Don't worry about that hole right there, though.
Yeah, that one's not too hard to miss. Actually, you'd be surprised. Like that. I haven't seen people going the other. The bigger problem is downstream here. Is the wall on the left. I've run into that wall before on the left. It'll come into view here in a second. That wall over there, there's actually a lot of current pushing you into the wall down there, and that becomes more of a problem. So let's
talk about the reflip. Like now you have a boat going like this downstream. What do you think about for reflip? What are your options here?
Well, I mean, I feel like gearboats, you're not going to reflip them in the current. Like going downstream in general, you don't have enough people to hop on and just flip it back over and get back in and go. Not like an oar paddle combo or paddle boat where you can just climb on top. Like we saw last week with the cataract, with the one cataract, you just climbed on top in the current, flipped it back over, got back in, and away you went. I just don't see that happening in a gearboat.
You could with like maybe 10 people, 10 people, 4 different lines on it. They could maybe get this over if you
they can get it over for sure, but it's more like when I say in the current is, I mean, as you're going downstream, like in my mind, like a paddle boat flip or a very light boat flip, your best option is just to climb back up and on as soon as you can and flip it back over and climb back in. I feel like a gearboat, you're better off getting into an eddy because you're going to need more people normally. Normally, you're not going to have enough people just from that boat to flip it back over, and you're going to have to attach lines. So I wouldn't flip it in the current, but I would flip it in the water. And
so let's say there's like 2 miles of flat water after this.
Yeah.
You could put 10 people on it in the current as it's slowly floating. And that's a method. It's probably not the easiest method because organizing 10 people and explaining to them what to do and executing it isn't always easy. You need 10 trained people and you need some big guys.
I'd say 6 or 8, depending on how big they are. I've done this a few times. And 6 to 8. If you got like a bunch of guys like you, Zach, 6. A bunch of people like me, 8.
I flipped a pretty loaded 16-foot gearboat with just 2 people like me. So it's being big you have more leverage because you're tall, and just the weight really helps. So
I'm a big fan of just flipping it in the water. I think it's the safest thing to do. It's like you're in an eddy, or like you said, floating in the current. If you know you can go for miles, and get like 6 or 8 people on top of there. Try it and see, and then if you don't have enough, get more people on it. If it's not coming up, you're like, okay, we need some more people. But I think the thing is you want it. Getting too many people on there is like it's messier too. Then you got a bunch of people there. So
I mean, you have to manage all the people, and if somebody does something that's not super smart, somebody can get hurt that way.
And what I do is kind of interesting. What Mark talked about a little bit is I'll take a throw bag and tie it off to the frame, like where they are right now. I'll go over the side, tie it off to the frame, and then make loops and go back and tie it off to the frame again, and tie that same throw bag off to the frame. So there's like loops going across it, like a bunch of people can grab onto that same throw bag. Does that make sense?
So you're using one like 60-foot, 70-foot throw bag,
making W's across.
Yeah, so the people have loops, and it's easier to pull on a loop than a rope. You just have a rope, like those silly little bags of rope that hang off the sides of boats people have. Like that's just a rope, and so it's hard to grab it and hold on to it. If you have something forming a loop, you can just pull the knot hard and really lean back.
And then it spreads everyone out, so everyone's got space, and they're not all holding onto 2 lines or something. But I like that. Just have all you need is one throw bag in, because some people take like multiple throw bags out, and then you got multiple throw bags going downstream, and that one that's looped like that, it's close to the boat. And that's why I'm saying you're not like floating downstream. You're like where they are now. You're in an eddy. They look almost, yeah. And then usually we'll have a second throw bag, or have someone hold the bow line or something, and then we'll push it out in the current, get it away from shore a little bit, and then flip it over. And that to me is the preferred technique. I find it works really well. A couple other things I like about it is,
you explain that, Aaron, do explain that really fast. Let's watch what they do.
Great.
And keep that in mind, and let's come back to that, because I didn't even get that, and I generally know what you're talking about. So I'm gonna make this big, and let's just watch it once and maybe comment on it as it goes.
Oh, they're flipping. But they're doing different. They're flipping it, trying to flip it up onto shore, but they're using another raft, which is kind of smart. But still, I don't like this technique as much, because it's the boat. The tube is on the sand right now, and so they have to pull it up way higher. And if it was in deeper water, that tube could go deeper in the water, and it's going to take less force to flip it.
You think the tube's hitting sand where it's at?
Oh, it totally is. Yeah, it is. Okay. Yeah, it is. You can see it, and then it looks like they may have took the pins off, and they took the oars off. I don't bother taking the oars and pins off usually. I'll just flip it over and not really worry about it. And then this, I feel like when it comes over, people get hurt when it flips over towards them onto shore. This is just, I mean, this works for sure. And this is the classic technique. This is the technique I used to do until some people start talking to me about flipping it in the river. And it's like, it works way better. This is actually really controlled. That looks really good right now.
I mean, when the boat gets vertical like this, it's typically kind of controlled.
Yeah.
When it's here, you typically have time to do it slowly.
Well, they're flipping it on top of the other raft, that's an interesting technique. That's like a really good idea. I'd never seen that before. That's really cool.
Using the raft as a buffer.
Because remember, you flip it over and lands on some rocks. You put a hole in the boat, or the boat gets stuck on shore, or falls on top of somebody. So they've got some safety between them and the boat, so the boat's not going to fall on top of them. I kind of like that technique. I mean, that's something I'll remember.
I thought it was interesting. I've never seen that, but just one thing, they get it to here, and then they go to push it in, and let's see, you don't hear the audio, right there, they pop it.
Oh, really?
So they push it on something. It's an NRS Hypalon boat. This is not, it's fair quality, but this is not your top level quality boat here.
But still, whatever popped that is probably really sharp and could probably pop a Sojo.
Well, it could have been, maybe.
Or wing boats.
Yeah. It's more likely to pop a Hypalon boat, I think.
It is.
But my guess is it was the oarlock on the boat they were against. Mm-hmm. Right now, they got it over, and then they're pushing it against, I'm guessing, the oarlock, and it hit the oarlock and popped on that.
Yeah.
Like that, what made me think of the durability of the boat is, see that Moravia in the foreground?
Yeah, that would be.
It wouldn't have popped that Moravia.
Most likely, Zach, Moravias get holes in them too. So I'd say
they do. They do get holes, but I mean, a Moravia is way less likely to pop than an NRS and something.
All that weight was on one thing too. It's probably just sitting on that one spot.
Yeah, it's a heavy gear boat with a lot of stuff. But who knows? It could have been a lot of things. Maybe somebody left a knife out. Who knows what it was?
Some of those ammo cans, like the weird size ammo cans that people like. They've got the sharp little flange on the top. Like there's just a lot of things. So anyway,
that's one thing. I've flipped a boat back over onto shore and popped it. Same thing. You know what? We're on shore. There's no boat barrier. It lands on a rock, pops, and all of a sudden, like, oh, great! Now to deal. De-rig an entire boat. It's super not pleasant. Once you've done it once, you'll never do it again. You'll be super careful.
So let's just talk about, like, it's a cold day, and they probably don't want to get wet, and it's probably why they didn't do it in the river. And during the winter Grand Canyon trip, it's a different story. I'll say a summer Grand Canyon trip, just if they just push that out off the shore.
Hold on, when you say get in the river, you mean like get 6 of them on the boat?
Yeah,
and then
flip it over.
Yeah.
And I think that's, like I said, I think that's the safest way to flip it back over, is just away from shore in deep water. You don't have to worry about the oars getting snagged on stuff, or the spare oar, or the pins getting bent, or any of that stuff. And the way the boat falls over, people aren't going to get, in general, you're not going to get like hit hard by the boat. It kind of works. It works really well. But going back to what I was saying, Zach, I would untie the bow line, And let's just say that person who's sitting in the foreground there, have that person hold on to the bow line and then push the boat out into the eddy if there's an eddy there. And maybe there isn't an eddy in this spot and it doesn't work very well, but you want a spot with a nice eddy. And I think upstream of them, the eddy's a little bit deeper and a little bit better. So I'd pull it to the upstream part of the eddy, push it out in the water, have them flip it over, and then you can just recover.
So do the same thing, pull on ropes.
Yeah, but be standing on that tube. But if you're standing on the tube, you're pushing that tube down into the water, right? As you push that tube down into the water, it's going to start flipping more anyways. It's just so much more efficient flipping it in deep water.
Yeah, so like you still want those guys there on the tube, forcing the tube down.
Well, all of them on the tube. Well, all of them on the tube. Want all 6 people to 8 people on the tube.
But I disagree with that.
Okay, here, Zach. I'll have to find the footage. There's footage of guys doing it, and they do a great job of it.
Because when you have 6 or 8 people on the tube, I'm worried about when the boat flips over, what happens to them.
It's not bad. The boat doesn't come over that fast. Like, that's the standard way we rewrite gearboats down.
Oh, how do you keep the boat? So when you're pulling on the ropes, you still have ropes, right, to shore?
No ropes from shore. Just a bow line. Just somebody holding the bow line so the boat doesn't float away.
And how does it flip over? Oh, you just get like flip lines on it.
Yeah, like I said, the W with the throw bag.
Okay, so you basically, instead of flipping the current, what you're saying is like just get it in a deep eddy and get 6 people in flip. Yeah, I'm with you on that. I like that a lot. Yeah. I think the struggle some people have is that they don't always have 6 big people who are comfortable with it, and there's not always a deep eddy. I think this technique, with a trained crew, you can do what you're talking about, but I think this technique, like what they're doing, works in a more variety of situations.
I don't know, Zach. I think this is harder. I think this takes more muscle, more strength, and you're more likely to get somebody hurt. I feel like this is, what do I say? This is a much, I think this way is much sketchier flipping on the shore. Like
I agree with you. There's more danger here for sure. I agree with you there, but I think that sometimes people just can't get enough people that are big and strong and able to get an 18-foot foot over.
Let me put it this way. Those people to have enough muscle to pull, it takes more force to flip it over the way they're doing it right now than if it were in the river. So all those people that are on shore, you get to use less of them, put it out in the middle of the river.
Yeah, but it's not a dynamic environment. It's right now it's pretty static. It's not like things aren't moving around, people aren't losing their balance, like things are static and controlled.
It's not that bad. I really wish I'll have to pull that other footage.
All right, we'll look at your videos of this. I'm with you. I'm with you. Like I would, if it was me in the group I was with and I was the person in charge of this, I'd be like, hey, let's just get 8 people on this boat, get a bunch of flip lines. Let's flip this bad boy over, right? That's what I would choose to do. I'm with you. Or let's get it to a calm spot. And you're right, have somebody hold it in its place. I'm with you. But I think this is a technique that people use a lot, and it also has its place. Like there's times.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. I think there are times like you don't have a good eddy, you don't want to go downstream.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a rabbit around the corner, you can't. You maybe have time to attempt a couple of them, but if it doesn't work, you have a boat in the middle of the river with a bunch of people on it. So I think there's times when this technique, if you don't know what's around the corner, you can't goof around with like 8 people trying to flip a boat in the current or on shore, because it could get things could get out of control. So I think this is a technique. I want to ask you though about in this technique, they're using Z rigs. Have you ever? This is 2 Z rigs here. Do you see that?
Oh, I didn't realize they're using.
That's where they're getting mechanical advantage.
You can use less that way for sure. Yeah, that works. I mean,
so they have they're getting more force. My issue with this when I'm looking at it is I'm guessing they're using throw bags for the Z rigs, right? And the throw bags, they stretch more. It looks like I see this. I'm not sure, but people don't typically have 2 static lines to do this, and they're attached to just one D ring. So they're loading up these throw bags, which stretch and they get energy in the bags, and they're on one D ring. If that D ring pops with these large forces, you see all the people in the line of fire right now. That's where I see the danger is.
Okay.
I'd rather see them like on a wrap. I don't like people tying to frame. I don't think tying to a frame works for pulling wraps off. People think it does, But I'd like to see in this case them attaching to the frame instead of those D-rings.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Totally agree.
Fire back.
Totally agree with that. Hey Zach, I found that video footage. You want to do
in a minute?
Can you share my screen?
Let's finish this and then because then I want to finish this video and then we'll switch it over.
Okay, because it's just a real quick little clip of them just standing on the boat flipping it over. If you want to show that.
Let's do it in a second, because once I give you control, it's getting back control takes time. It's like a whole. We're not going to come back to this after that.
Okay, sounds good. You're going to give me control, huh?
Yeah, but so anyway, just back to some things I just want to check with you. How do you feel about that? Like attaching it to the frame over the D-rings?
Totally agree. I prefer the frame, because also the frame hangs down, and I feel like it's better when the frame is pulled in snug. Like it's just like it's just all holding it together better.
You can see there the frame's kind of hanging down, so things are hanging down. It's coming off the boat a little bit.
Yeah. I will say from shore, Zach, I actually prefer the technique now that we used on the Illinois, and I've used that down the Grand Canyon as well, where we pushed it away from ourselves, and then it didn't hit the boats. And are you gonna show? Do you have that footage so we can show that as well?
I don't, but I don't. I should have it with me. That's a good idea. I don't have it with me, but the quick explanation, I'll try to explain it, is that instead of running the ropes over the top of the boat, you run them under the boat, have the people hold them in their hands, and then people stand in the water here and just push the boat out. That's the quick explanation. Right. Totally. I think it worked.
I just I've got it here too, so we can watch that afterwards real quick. Cool. I pulled it up from this gear garage. Have you heard of
that? Sweet. And then there's one more thing I want to talk about with this. I'm trying to remember what it was. Oh, so once it's here, I was thinking about this. I really was wondering what would happen when this boat flipped over. And this is always the issue, is like once you get a vertical, and some key points here, once it's vertical like this, it's generally kind of, you have time, right? You can kind of chill here for a minute. So the key, the struggle I get into is, when I'm going to go back to this, when I'm doing this is like, how do we keep it from not landing on the shore or landing, like in their case, on another boat? And I always like to think about, let's get the bottom out. Like, let's leave the top here. Let's not keep pulling the top over. How do we just move the bottom out? And so one thing I was thinking of is, what if this person in this green boat untied, put a rope on her boat to the boat, and then she pulled it out? What would you think of that?
I think that's just going to be so messy and hard to do right. And like, I think that's, I'm not a fan. I'll just say, like, to begin with, I think it's, I kind of agree. Like, it just sounds a little messy. My chosen technique here is, once you get it here, just like keep it stable. Have these two dudes go to the bow and the stern, get in the water up to the waist or whatever, and they just push from the bow and the stern, standing in the water. They just slowly push this side out. That's a technique that I really like. I think it's super effective. Really? Even with those huge gear boats?
Yeah, it doesn't take much. I mean, once it's vertical like this, it's pretty stable. It doesn't take much just to push the bottom out. And it kind of just like slides out then.
I feel like it's kind of, I don't know, man. Like with those big gear boats, I don't like flipping towards shore. I think that's what I'm saying. Like, I think that's the third option. And I think that's the third option. Number one option is flip it out in the river for a heavy gear boat. Second option I prefer now is flipping it away from you. And you have the straps underneath, pulling underneath, like we did on that Illinois trip.
Cool. We'll show that video in a second. But let's.
Yeah, I got that video queued up too.
Now that I've seen that done, I'm like, yeah, that's a pretty sweet way to do it. But I think here, there's times when you have to do it this way. That's the situation you have. It's the space you have, like on a continuous river. There's times.
And then you can still flip it away from you, Zach.
Yeah, maybe. It doesn't always like lend itself to that. But I'm gonna say, when I use this technique, my plan is, these two dudes don't need to be there anymore. Put them on the bow and the stern. Instead of pulling the boat all the way over, push the bottom out.
It's still gonna fall down. It's still gonna fall down hard though. Like because it's sitting on the raft, so it's still gonna pop a hole in it in that raft.
No, the times I've done it's worked really well. It kind of I can slowly go out.
It sounds like a big, strong, buff dude move. Like you just get some big, huge dudes, and you just like muscle it, just like lift it up and flip it over. Yeah, I don't know.
Crazy Bill, thanks for joining us. It's good to have you on the show. We'd always love having you to be part of this. Bernie is hopefully in the Senate doing something. I know there's a lot of memes of him traveling the world right now doing cool stuff. It turns out he's not really doing it. He's actually working right now, I think.
Oh, we're talking about Bernie Sanders. I didn't even know
Well,
that.
have you seen all those Bernie Sanders memes?
No, I'm not.
All right, Aaron, you can go share screen, take control.
All right, here we go. Okay, sharing screen. Sharing my entire screen. Why is it not working? There we go. All right, here we go. Is everyone seeing? Are you seeing my screen now, Zach?
Not yet. Hold on, I have to add it to the stream. This is Aaron White. Didn't want. Okay. You're showing me your whole.
Here we go. Here we go. Okay, here. So this is the technique of these guys are just standing on it in an eddy. This is Blow Hermit, and they're just going to flip it over. And there's what, 5 of them on this boat?
This is not an 18-foot boat.
Yeah, I think it is. Maybe not. But they're big guys. All right. So, but this technique I think is the best technique. Just right here. Okay.
They're using it. They're not doing your W though. They have a bunch.
They're not using W. It's the same idea. You know. Up. They don't have enough. They got 6 of them. That's an 18-footer. There they go. They got that. You can see the line. They got a line to shore there. So they added more people.
Okay.
You do a little rock there.
Okay, Aaron. So this doesn't look that successful to me.
It does. They just need to put more people on it. That's the thing is they just need to put.
No, I get it, but
they're gonna get it here.
I mean, you don't always have like a bunch of 22-year-olds that want to jump on a boat and fall out a bunch.
Yeah, Zach. When I flipped it over, the last time I flipped it Hermit, I didn't have 22-year-olds that were on my commercial crew who were pulling onto the boat to help me flip it over. There they go. See, that's an 18, and right there. See how smooth it is? Like that's it. That's the tickle. Watch it one more time. Just
I noticed they left the oar on the boat, and that oar luckily caught in the inside. That oar could have flapped and hit somebody.
No, it's not going to hit anyone because they're underneath the raft, Zach. It's not going to like wrap around under the raft. So okay. We'll exit full screen. Now we'll. So
hold on. Hold on, Aaron. When you flipped it, Hermit. Hold on. You use commercial passengers to help reflip it?
Oh yeah, exactly. There's only 6 guides on a trip.
Okay, and you had like how many of them was it?
It was me and all guests. There's no other guides helping.
How many total people?
I want to say like 8, probably, maybe 9 of us.
And are these like? I mean, it sounds like you're running pretty light boats. Is this
just
like an empty boat?
The Azure rigs are actually really known to be very heavy. Okay. So no, I mean, I did definitely choose a couple of the biggest dudes I could find. I'm like, hey man, I need your help, and you're like, yeah, you're big, get out of here. But so yeah, so I think I like that technique the best. You just need to make sure you have enough weight on it because you saw what happened when they didn't, and that's kind of the classic. Yeah. Kind of people fall off, but it's still this people fall off. It's not a huge boat falling on top of you and breaking your leg.
I'm with you, Aaron. I agree with this technique 100%. It's simple, it's safe. Yeah. It just you have to have some experience with it, right? You have to like you have to have some practice having done it, because if you're just like if nobody's ever done it and you just like let's throw 6 people at it and see what happens, it seems impossible. You have to know it can be done with 8 people or 10 people.
You just got to keep putting people on until it works. So
yeah,
and then by having said that, now down in the Grand Canyon, I've also done this technique which we did on the Illinois after I flipped on the Illinois, where you can see like along this side here, we've got lines that are attached to the frame on this side. They go under the boat and they're coming through, and you can see this guy holding a line here. And I believe we had another line on this side that came.
There were 2 lines. Yeah, there were 2. Thomas is holding another line.
Lines, and people are holding the lines, and we're gonna have a bunch of people pick the boat up, lift up, and flip it over into the current. And so like here's a classic example. We're not going to do it out. There's no eddy to do it in. Yeah. We're not. If we flip it the other way, we're gonna wrench the pin the pin that's closer to shore. The one that's out in the water is a little less likely to wrench. You start to get it up, and it's not getting wrenched on nearly as much flipping this way as it comes over. And so here we'll watch what happens. And you know, at first I thought this was going to be really uncontrolled. Oh, we're talking more. Dang it. Okay. There we go. There we go. You think it's going to be not very controlled, but it ends up being really controlled because you can't lift it up if you don't have enough strength. It just doesn't come up, and it comes over pretty nice. Done. Yeah. So I like this technique.
I mean, in that example, that worked really well for a couple of reasons. One, we weren't going to let it pause it really fast, Darren, if you can. We weren't going to let it keep going downstream.
Yeah. No.
We weren't going to like my ideal thing would be like, this is a 14-foot gearboat, so this isn't that hard to flip. You and I probably could have done it, right? Maybe 3 people. Ideally, that's what I would have done. But you can see there's current around the corner. There's no eddy down there for a while. We definitely weren't going to let it go downstream. We did not want to flip it on the shore either because it's just shallow rocks. So we wanted to flip it out away from us. It worked really well. This is the first time I'd ever seen that technique, and I thought it was amazing.
Yeah, I remember the first time I saw it, I thought it was super sketchy, and I was totally scared. And like I said, it was an 18-foot gearboat, and this private group waved us over and asked us for help. And I was looking at another guy, and we were both looking at each other, being like, I don't know. Okay, how do I stop sharing, Zach?
Hit stop share at the bottom. I can't hit
share. Stop screen.
Stop screen, maybe.
There you go. Stop screen. Okay. Yeah, stop screen. So. Yeah, the first time we were kind of sketched out, but they asked us for help, and you're like, they need help. Okay. And so we got in there with them, and we all pushed it over together. And I was surprised how safe I felt doing it. I was like, oh, this isn't going to come back down on top of us because there's a bunch of things. It wasn't like we had enough hands. Again, I think it's all about having enough people, and you're like, okay, we got more than enough people here. And everyone just pushed together and flipped it over. So that's kind of been, I think those are my go-to. My number one now is the flipping in the water, in the current, because you need less people, and it's real safe, really smooth. You're not worried about like breaking stuff as you flip it over. And then my next best option is that one where you flip it away from yourself. So, oh, cool. We're gonna watch this, huh? This is great. This is great footage.
Have you seen this?
Oh yeah, I've watched this before.
Okay. So that's we kind of hammered flipping there. I want to talk about some wrapping a little bit and some wrap footage and some more things. And just to follow up, Aaron, I think I agree with you completely, and you just summed it up. But I think I'm a fan of like get people on the boat and flip it over with flip lines or whatever you need to do as step one. If you have to get to shore, you have to get to shore. I like the method that those people did, although I wouldn't use 3-to-1s of flipping it to shore personally, because everybody kind of knows that method. It's easy to explain, right? Whereas like the other techniques require
you'd use that first. That's your first choice.
Yeah, it's just easy to explain. It's pretty straightforward. But if there's some situation where like it's too shallow or I'm worried about something, then I might try something else. That's just my take.
So you're saying as an out there, you'd rather have your guys flip your boats onto shore than push them out into the water and flip them where they're not going to put holes in them and damage your pins and mess things up?
Why? I don't know why you always put words in my mouth like that. But
well, I'm just saying, like on your gear. This is just about your gear. You'd rather have them beat up your gear? I mean, that seems crazy.
I think I'm a fan of techniques people know, right? Like especially in situations like this. Like let's do things that people know and are practiced on.
But I think people haven't practiced that either, Zach. I mean, most people haven't practiced flipping a boat onto shore. They're just like that's what they've heard, so that's what they're going to do.
Let me rephrase that. I like common techniques. So there's a commonality. I like things that people can understand and digest. Because as soon as you start getting to complicated things, not everybody knows what's going on. And I think it's just there's an effectiveness to common understandable techniques.
Okay, I agree with that. And that's why I could see the flipping the boat away from you not being a common understandable technique.
So you did a good job of explaining it, and we weren't in a hurry. Like you were like, "Hey guys, I'm gonna," and you had people that were receptive to it. You know, it wasn't like somebody standing like, "I'm Old Man River, and I've been guiding 31 years, and this is how you always flip boats." There was none of that. I was like, "You had this idea," and we're like, "Cool, well, listen, we'll do it. We can understand what you're trying to do, and you're a good leader. You're good at explaining it." But I think in a lot of situations, maybe on a private trip or somewhere else where there's like a power dynamic between people that's weird. There's maybe underlying like mistrust. If somebody, multiple people want to be the safety squirrel, they want to be the hero of the situation. And I think that's where if I had on the Illinois, had an ego battle with you and be like, we're doing it my way. This is, then it would have got out of control. Whereas like, I feel like having a common technique that everybody kind of knows and gets has value.
I agree with that. I'm not arguing that. But I think the most common technique that everyone's practiced is what you do for what do you do for the IRF course? What's the technique they use for the IRF?
It's a paddle boat. You jump on it and flip it over.
But it's still the same technique. You just put more people on.
Aaron, that's how I started this. This is how I started this conversation. I 100% agree that if you can get people on the boat and flip it over in the current or like in an eddy, that's the way to go.
You just said the onshore is your first choice.
No, I started my talk, we can rewind it later. And I started by saying my number one choice for flipping a boat over is getting the people on it. I mean, ideally in the current, like don't even get to if you have time while it's floating in the current, getting the people on it and do the reflip, you're done. Or get it to a deep enough eddy and do the same thing. But there's times when you don't have the current. There's times when you don't have the deep enough eddy. And then in that case, I'd rather flip it to shore and push the bottom out. Your other technique is good too, like the one we did on the Illinois, but that's what I would do next just because people know it, right? And I think people also do know like the get on the boat and flip it method too. I think that's what people.
Sorry, it wasn't to me. Zach, I heard you saying that at the beginning, but then it sounded like you were switching over. You're like your favorite techniques to the shore, and I was like, wait, I'm confused here. So yeah, I found that a little confused, but now it makes sense to me. I get that. I kind of agree. Right.
So we're switching gears now, and this is some footage somebody sent us at Blossom Bar of some people rescuing a Raft boat. And so just for some background, the person on the oars here is not part of the team that Raft. It's somebody else. They found somebody else's Raft, and what they're doing.
Did they just switch boats? Now they're in a ducky. Weren't they just throwing?
Yeah, I think time passed. Or like they edited it. They basically sent this ducky down on a rope to attach a rope to it. So he attaches a rope to the perimeter line.
And do they have oh wow, look at that. And they have him, do they have him on
They have him on a rope. So they're gonna pull him back upstream.
Oh, that's kind of clever.
Yeah.
That's kind of like what we were talking about with in the podcast with the lowering of someone to, walking down, but instead they're in an inflatable kayak, which seems way safer.
Yeah, I mean, I would not do this on like a PFD thing. I hate to rewind this, but like I'm going to because like what they did here. First of all, this is way better on a ducky. If you're on like a tether on a PFD being lowered down into a wrapped raft, I would be super scared, right? I wouldn't want that, and I'm personally not gonna go on tether for gear. If there's a person down here, yeah, but I'm not gonna put myself on a rope on my PFD to get a gear. That's for sure. But the one thing I want to point out is the danger rope or the perimeter line is so loose here.
It's way better for clipping to if it was really tight back.
Yeah, it makes it really convenient for him to attach his rope to, because he doesn't want to spend a lot of time, although he does kind of bash it. Right there, I would be scared because I could maybe flip off. Like he's coming a little bit fast. Right, like I don't want to be slowly lowered down and control to the boat. If current hit that ducky weird, he could flip and then be in the water next to upside down boat. So
Zach, here's a question for you: if that perimeter line were really tight and then you clipped onto it, the force on those D rings would be a lot higher once they started, yanking on it.
Yeah. So because it's basically a vector pull at that point.
Yeah,
so it's
exactly.
Actually, really nice that it's loose.
This is the preferred technique: loosen up your perimeter line before running Blossom.
No, I think this is a non-locking carabiner too, right here. It looks like non-locking to me. So anyway, I think if this perimeter line isn't loose, I think you could still tie to a tight one. It would pull out enough, I believe, to where it wouldn't create a crazy vector pull. I don't know. This is not traditional technique to just attach. I think, and that actually looks like a non-locking carabiner is attaching onto the thing. So this is a double non-locking thing.
Is that just a regular throw bag or is that a static throw bag, you think?
It looks pretty big. I mean, it looks like I don't know. It's a pretty big bag. It's the rope they have. Now, when I look at this wrap right here, let me go back. This isn't wrapped that bad. right? Like all you need to do is where you attach the rope, just pull it and it's going to flip over, right? This boat is almost off. Like there's tons of water pushing on the right. There's hardly any water pushing on the left. It just takes some pulling. It's not going to be hard to pull this thing over to flip.
If you were on the rock behind it, you'd feel like if you pushed on that high point, if you push as hard as you can on the high point and kind of pushed it until it flipped, it would come off. Yeah.
I think a person on the rock could get this boat off. A good, like you could get it if you were on the rock, Aaron. You would just wiggle it a little bit, pull it up a little bit, wiggle it, wiggle it, wiggle it. This would probably come off without ropes if you were on the rope behind it. If you're on the rock behind it. So if this was
say something, Zach, I think the plating tubes would maybe not work on this well because it's so vertical. It's almost inverted, and I don't know if deflating that top tube would help much there if you deflated the top left tube. Because that would be my normal technique, would be to deflate that top left tube, but it's so vertical.
The one in the water.
What?
The top
one
left
out of the water, looking downstream, the one on river left.
Why would you deflate the one out of the water? It's not catching water.
That's exactly why, because it softens up the boat and it allows that bottom tube to float up because the rigidity of the boat's holding it in place.
I would never have guessed that.
That's the standard technique.
A couple things here. They in the notes for their video.
Wow.
They send somebody upstream there's upstream spotters because people at this point there's ropes in the water. Nobody can go, right? They're hogging the river. So everybody who approaches Blossom now is waiting for this to get done. Talk
about stressful, right? Like being in this spot where you're like, oh, we gotta hurry. Everyone's waiting for us. There's all these. We gotta get this off. It's so. I mean, that's one of the things you gotta just take your time though and just be like, yeah, we're in the way, but don't rush. He's got a lot of prussics going on there.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on, but he's basically, these are good anchors. I mean, it's hard to set up anchors in such a random place, so he obviously knows what he's doing with the anchors. And I think he just has 2 prussics. So it looks like the that prussic for the Z rig and then
the
brake. And these are those kind of those old school cheaper pulleys. They don't self-mind. They're not self-minding. He has just enough rope. I mean, this is probably a 75-foot throw bag. Just enough rope to pull this off.
And he's pulling by himself and he gets it? Wow.
It's not going to take much. As we were talking about, it doesn't, and the beauty, the key here, I think, is that self-minding. Or not self-minding, he's able to capture his progress. Right? He's able to pull and then capture progress. And now take a break. Yeah. Pull, capture progress. So every time
there's that rock halfway across too, that if stuff breaks, it's going to run into that rock. See how the rope's kind of going around the rock? Like between the raft and where he's pulling, there's a rock.
Oh, so if it fires back, the rock will protect him.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah. It seems like it would deflect stuff out.
The rock is wearing the rope though. I mean, that's an issue.
A little bit. Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, but it's a pretty smooth rock. I'm not that worried about the rock there.
I mean, this guy definitely knows what he's doing because as it goes, he's moving the brake prusik. This isn't taking massive forces. This isn't like a real wrap that takes.
See what I mean? You saw that if you go back to that rock is making it's a really nice protection for him. That's oh man.
I'll go back a little bit. But see, he's pulling and then moving.
He's getting it down there.
That rock right there.
That rock there.
Yeah.
See,
if that perimeter line fails, here it's a perimeter line attached to a bunch of D-rings. So one D-ring failing is not going to make it fire back. But
just in general, thinking about that aspect of it, I agree with you. The likelihood of anything breaking and it zipping back is lower. The question I have though is when it comes off, what's going to happen?
So that's what I was going to ask you next. Is exactly what's the plan for when the wrap comes undone?
Yeah, he doesn't have any extra line there. I mean, it's interesting.
Dustin asks, situation dictates.
I think he was talking about when we were talking about flips. He was kind of,
Oh yeah. I think having a lot of tools in your tool chest is awesome. And so you kind of have to look at what's going on and choose how you do it based on how it goes. Yeah, there's non-locking carabiners everywhere, which I would say we all have to agree that we should not have non-locking carabiners in whitewater situations. But do you typically deflate tubes? Well, that's interesting, Trevor.
Great question, Trevor.
Aaron is a big tube deflator. I am not. Think I've tried it once. I can't remember if it worked. I like tools. I like pussies and pulleys and manpower and I like let's pull out the gadgets. Aaron's likes to use his brain more.
Yeah, Trevor, like we had it like back when I was working Tuolumne trips, I got up to like 75 wraps. And people on the show probably heard this before. And when we started doing tube plate deflation, out of 75 wraps, I lost count at that point. 2 times tube deflation didn't work, or we didn't use it. We ended up using a rope from shore. One of those was, both of them were SOTARs, and I wasn't in charge of either of those. So, and I think one could have worked with the tube deflation. The other one, I don't think it would have, because it was like an inverted wrap where only the lower part of the boat was touching the rock. It was up on Cherry Creek. And the SOTARs are different I don't find tube deflation works as well with the SOTARs as it does with the quarter chambers in like the Avons or in most of the Hypalon boats. And
I'm going to make a generalization here. I think that SOTARs, like urethane boats, are less likely to wrap than Hypalon boats. Hypalons, it's grabbier to the rock, and it's less stiff, so it starts to catch the water. The SOTAR will slide down the rock a little bit more, and it will stay stiff and maybe right up on it and flip. Yeah. So I mean, in my experience, I've seen way more wraps with Hypalon and PVC boats than with urethane boats.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Well, bum. Yep, picket fence. It's not the picket fence. It's like the wrap rock. The picket fence is to the left. How do you guys feel about Chacos? I mean, yeah, I'm with you. I think people should wear shoes, but I know it's a lot to ask. It's like,
well, and like on the road, how many people are actually wearing shoes on the road?
I do. I mean, I don't wear shoes it's not like, but if you're gonna wear, it's not like you're gonna wear Chacos when you're just rafting and then switch into your open toe shoes for a rescue. You're gonna do rescues in the shoes you're wearing. Yeah. People don't bring rescue shoes. Ideally, people had like, they're probably not wearing helmets either. We'll have to look.
He's wearing a helmet. Yeah.
Somebody made a good point a while ago that made me realize that, we should have helmets. Even if we don't wear helmets on the trip, we should have helmets for rescues. And so I like shoes, of course, but for a lot of other reasons too. I just think that shoes are better. But I also get it. People on vacation, they want to wear sandals. I mean, guys don't want to wear them all the time.
Certain rivers, if you work certain rivers, you get really nasty foot rot if you're wearing shoes all the time. So you can't wear shoes.
Depends on the person. I don't get that foot rot, so I can wear shoes. And I think, I mean, also I wear shoes and socks in camp. Like I'll wear river shoes all day, and then get to camp and immediately put shoes and socks on.
Zach, I wear shoes on most trips, but Grand Canyon trips I can't do it. Like the Grand Canyon's a mess. Everyone gets the foot funk. They just get the tolio and it starts eating your toes. I just wear shoes for the rapids and take them off after every rapid right away and still after
really.
Yeah.
Hey, what? Yep. You wear shoes? You switch between shoes and sandals throughout the day?
No, I actually just go barefoot between, because there's big rapids. So I throw my shoes on for the rapid and take them off right away again. Every other river I work, I'll wear shoes all the time.
You go barefoot. You'll be barefoot in the raft.
Well, just between the rapids, usually I wear my flip flops down there. But for big rapids, I put on my shoes.
All right, I don't allow that. I need guides to be wearing shoes and stay on their feet all the time. But I whatever. I'm not going to. I have.
Well, you have different problems on different rivers.
Yep. No, I can see that.
To quote your guides, the situation dictates.
Yeah, but Dustin, that doesn't mean you can't wear shoes. So I think the question you had earlier was what happens when it comes off, because all of a sudden it's going to be upside down. It's almost, we agree, this thing's going to flip off. It's going to flip off, be upside down, be pulling tons of force, and now the system is running 3-to-1 in reverse. There's just tons of force on all this stuff. What happens? What's the end plan here, Aaron?
Cut, maybe. I don't know. We'll see.
Is that safe? Do you think that's safe?
I don't know.
What does he cut? What does he cut? The main haul line?
Probably, or the Prussics, depending on the situation.
One of the Prussics, but even if he cuts the Prussic,
the problem for him is like he's got the throwback on the end, so it won't. If you cut both Prussics, it'll, or if you just cut the one Prussic, which is the not the prusik on the pulley, but the prusik, the brake prusik. If you cut that one, it'll unwind itself.
So right now too, I think he's pulling, and then camera guy with a GoPro is minding the prusik that captures the load, right? So now he can just, one person can pull and one person can move the prusik, and so he can keep capturing progress. I love progress capture because you pull, then just take a break for a while. And just take a break, think things through, just double check stuff.
I'm gonna say I feel like these guys are doing a good job on this. They're pretty darn efficient with what they're doing, and they're choosing good technique, and they're pulling from the right direction. And you kind of just got to get the boat off sometimes.
I think they got a lot of flack for this, but I agree with you. I think they did a lot of good things.
Yeah.
And so he's taking a break. Probably, like, again, he's pulling hard. They have progress capture, so they can take a break.
Well, and it's good too, because sometimes the boat will work itself off. You don't need to keep just wailing on it. They've been doing a good job of managing the ropes. Like, he's not standing on the rope. The ropes, like, it's a clean rescue situation there. Like,
he's wearing flip flops. It looks like, though. Are those flip flops? I think it's up. Oh, yeah, no, they're Chacos.
Yeah, and Chacos are solid. I feel like that's a solid rescue sandal. Like, you'd rather have closed toed, but that's respectable. I feel like that's within the norms. Like, if your guys are wearing Chacos, are you expecting your guys do you allow your guys to wear open toed shoes on the river?
Yeah. I prefer they wear closed toe shoes, but I allow them to. I think I'd rather have traction on wet rock than closed toe shoes in this situation. Like, that guy's got those Keens on. Those Keens probably don't grab on rock very well. I'd rather have Chacos with good rock grip than some shoe that doesn't grip onto the rock. So he's near the end. He has to reset his main prusik out, probably. So again, they have progress capture. He's going to move that prusik out so he can keep moving. I mean, he's probably moved the boat 3 or 4 feet, or not the boat. That tube is probably bent over at this point. And it's too bad that rock is there now because they can't see what's going on.
Yeah.
Right? Like, they don't know. Is the boat close to coming off? Is it deformed? Like, how close are they? But they've moved it. I mean, this is probably a good 4 or 5 feet. They could be stretching out the rope. The perimeter line could be stretching out. And just going back to the perimeter line on the boat they're attached to, it's not rated. I mean, that's the weak part of the system. Like, I would not suggest people.
Oh yeah, Willie Bum Bum makes a nice comment about that too. Willie Bum Bum said something about that there.
Let me pause this and go. I can't watch the way I have to set up the video. Let's go through the things really quick. Urethane boats need to flip more. Yep.
Yeah, totally. I think yeah.
Dude on IK paddles up to front of rat boat wild, then hooks non-rated P-line. Yeah. Yep. I mean, that's what we were talking about earlier. Willie Bum Bum is.
And he even and Willie Bum Bum mentions the vector pull and the D-rings. Well said, Willie. Yeah, we were discussing. Yeah.
We said that earlier before I got on. Like, luckily his perimeter line was loose, because then it wasn't quite a vector pull, and that's not at all rated or even close to rated line. Like, that's a pretty weak line that has seen UV degradation. It's dirty. Like, that could snap, but at the same time, it's kind of what they had, and it shouldn't take much to get this wrap off. Like, it was so close to coming off already. They just need to kind of move it a little bit. They got off the rock fast. That's a good question. Let's keep watching. Yeah, it didn't. They may have cut here. They may have like cut this video to make it seem shorter. I think we talked earlier about there's all the boats coming down that are like, dude, we want to go boating, and nobody can go until you get this off. So there's the pressure of the boats, but I think he's doing a good job of taking his time and being smart and he's not rushed. He's catching his breath. They're thinking things through. They're not like. There is that pressure of the boats coming down saying, hey, like, open up this channel.
I think it took them longer than 9 minutes too, because they came down on the cataract, and then they switched to the ducky. So there was that time to switch to get the rope set up to go down there to clip on. So there was some time planning there. But I'd say the time of like action of actually once they took the ducky down, that seems pretty realistic. It probably took them about 10 minutes,
It looks like the ducky's tied onto the cat too. Like, somebody's taking time to put a cam strap over the ducky so they're ready for action. I mean, this is a good example of a Z-rig too. Like one person pulling couldn't have done this, right? You're not going to get 7 people out here to pull. So this is a good example of you having 2 people and the mechanical advantage. Yeah, he's already getting blisters. I mean, this is when you have limited number of people to pull.
Do you carry gloves, Zach? Do you have gloves in yours?
I don't. I'm surprised he does. We do in our rescue kit, yeah, but
really,
yeah, but this wouldn't be. I wouldn't. This isn't my rescue kit, right? My rescue kit has a static line. It would be on a different boat. This guy's just using a throw bag and stuff he had handy. This wasn't like his rescue. I'm guessing not his rescue kit, but having gloves is really important. There we go. Capturing the progress a second ago. Okay, so
no, he's got his knife out. He's getting his knife out, getting ready to cut it because it's coming off.
This seems dangerous, but it was nice he had a plan. Like this is why I think again a lot of people give this guy a hard time. I think some things he did that were really smart. And in his comments, he said we sent somebody upstream as a spotter. He knew he was going to cut that. He knew when the boat came off, he had a plan. Right, he didn't come off. Like he knew as soon as it come off, pull a knife, cut the rope. He didn't have to think about this. Otherwise, again, there'd be an upside down boat pulling the system in reverse, which could be kind of sketchy and dangerous.
We've seen that before. It's messy. Yeah.
I'm not sure how excited I am about cutting a rope. I don't understand what he cut his expensive throw bag, but whatever. He's a hero. But I just wonder if that could fire back and hurt somebody with all that tension on there.
The guy standing behind it. It was amazing. It didn't more so. I'd love to hear that's. I'm a little concerned about that as well. But and look, they're ready to go. They got off pretty quick. Boom.
Like they had tied they tied the ducky off, I think, ahead of time, knowing that they could jump off and go downstream and do whatever they needed to do.
Go chase the boat, maybe.
It's not their boat, so it's with a different group. I mean, is it their responsibility to chase? I guess it is. They cut it off. I mean, this is the thing is you don't want to, did the people ask them to do it? Whoever the party that flipped or wrapped, do they have,
is it still stuck in the middle of the river now? Is it stuck down there in the middle in front of us?
Probably. Do they have the permission to cut it off? I'm guessing they did. And so now that they cut it off, do they respond? That's it right there, upside down.
Yeah.
So now you got to flip an upside down boat, Aaron. How do you flip this upside down boat?
Yeah, this is not good. Depending, I might try to pull it to the eddy on River Right. Take a throw bag, but it looks like it's going to move on them. But if you can throw a throw bag to people on River Right and pull into that eddy on the right shore and flip it over there, that's probably your best option.
But that eddy on River Right, is that big enough to do it the technique of putting 8 people on it? Or are we going to?
No, I would do the flip away technique.
The Illinois technique.
Yeah, the Illinois technique.
Yeah. But you need, to do that, you need 8 people, and
it's not hard to find 8 people at the Scout for. I bet you'd have like 40 people who'd want to help. Actually, your problem is you're probably going to have more people who want to help than you want.
Not on that we call that Ducky Beach on the right. Not at that beach because nobody's there. I mean, you have to get people to walk from the Scout all the way down. And it looks like all the people I was watching are all river left right now.
River left?
Yeah, there was a bunch of people river left. There was just a guy, and see the guy right there?
I bet they cut the eddy at the bottom on the left.
But there's a bunch of people river left that I saw earlier when watching the video.
This looks like challenging, actually, right here. This purchase looks pretty up. They got it. He just kind of worked it off. There you go.
So he's just like, good luck, boat. We'll see you at the bottom.
Yep. Which I think is like not a bad idea. It's like, man, you don't want to be tied to it. Just like let it go down, let them pick it up at the bottom. And
I think I don't think I'd pull it to the eddy on the right. And I think I'd try to get it all the way to the bottom. There's that big eddy, and it's going to get beat up. It's just that you
would just send it like you would send it like these guys did. Just send it off.
I'd send it. Yeah, it's too much. It's just too hard to pull it to an eddy over there. It's it's managing that. It's just a lot of work, and there's no people over there. And it seems like one of those things we get a throw bag on it, and people couldn't hold it. Now you have a boat with a throw bag attached to it going downstream. And then
we got some more comments. So.
Right, and then push it in. I'll go back to that. Push it into the eddy on the left.
Yeah, But now
that
they're
big
going
eddy.
to have to go try to go catch it. So that's the problem. Is like now it's way ahead of them, where they can get down there in time.
This rapid gets backed up. Yes, it definitely gets backed up in July. There's, there could. My guess is if this was like 1 o'clock, there's 20 boats back there. I mean, that's part of the post. I mean, that's part of the thinking about it, Aaron. That you said upstream safety, and then think about who's downstream to receive. Yeah. And so I'm guessing there's more members of this guy's party who flipped down here, right? This cataract by itself is not going to get this gearboat into the eddy. It maybe it's going to take.
It could if you got a line on it, yeah, and you pull it, yeah, you could get in there.
Yeah, if they're super, these guys are pretty. I mean, they seem to know what they're doing. Like if you're talented, you could, but not everybody is going to be able to get a line to it and pull into the eddy. So I think it depends a little bit on ability.
They got a line on it, like yeah, right. It's a mess. Like where you want to pull from, is where the boat is.
Yeah, see, there's it looks like a commercial trip kind of because we're all the same color boats, but there's help down there, right? Those boats can help now deal with the consequences of what's going on.
Would that be funny if it was a Northwest rafting boat, Zach?
The Raft flipped one. Oh, geez. Turns out they saved us. I wouldn't.
Oh, that was our boat. Oh, oops.
Yeah, so I think just taking their time and going down to this big eddy, and then in my opinion, like we talked about, get like 6 people, 4 people, 8 people on it. Do the flip in the deep eddy instead of using shore. It's really hard to use shore here to flip boats over. Anyway.
Yeah.
All right, I have one more video I want to share. That's another.
Okay, do we look at all the comments? Camera dude from Chad, he's asking the camera dude pulling the rig off to the right. It definitely, yeah, it looked like the line kind of broke off to the right. I wonder if that's because it's coming around the rock and the way it was getting pulled. I don't know, or the way he cut it. That's how you cut from. It's a good question.
Let me get back to that. I see.
Yeah, I mean, I've never really cut many ropes to know how how they fly back either. So I'm not really that comfortable with that. But the way he did it didn't look that bad. And I guess if you're right where you're cutting, the rope's going to go both ways from you, right? If you're cutting wherever you're cutting the rope, you're not going to get hit by anything where you're cutting because the rope's going to fly both directions. I would have been worried about the guy sitting behind the rope, and I think I would have liked to, hey, dude, move. When this get out of the way, and then
but he had to do it quickly. You wanted to cut it before the boat put full tension on it. So he was ready. I mean, he was like, "Yep, that's off. Knife cut." So I think I'm okay with it. But if it goes to full tension and that boat's pulling, the forces are higher. I don't know. Again, I don't know what's going to happen. It's kind of their only solution, though, right?
Seems like a good one. Okay,
it's kind of like all they had to do.
We got another one here.
We got one more. Let me see. Let me close this and let's play this. This is, I really like this one actually too.
Is this the one where they have like a rope dangling down and people grab the rope, or is that?
First of all, his oars are too wide. I hate to on this all the time, but his oars are just, he needs longer oars. Why do I keep badgering on that?
Oh, nice little bump off. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, dumping momentum. Bumping up on some rocks.
Oh, yeah. This is one where the person grabs did you show this to me? Or I've seen this one before too.
I can't remember.
Because I like this where they had the rope dangling so they could grab onto it to get themselves up to the eddy. I thought that was
so somebody set that rope so that, because that eddy's hard to catch.
Yeah.
And so having a rope there so that it's hard. It turns out they don't need it. It's kind of nice to have so the person rowing can then, because the person rowing can't jump off and get the rock. But you're not going to go by in current and hold that on that rope, right? It's just
no. It's more just to like
secure more for right here. Yeah. And so this one is a cat. This looks bad. I don't know, man. I would show up to this and be like, "Oh, dude, this is a project." How often? This is the picket fence. Proper. How often do you see catboats wrapped like this?
Yeah, no, don't.
It's pretty rare. So I watched this one last week, and I really like how again, they're taking their time here.
Yeah.
I feel like they like took their time. I actually really like this video a lot. You can see that guy's rescue PFD has a long tail off of his rescue tether thing, rescue vest. But they're taking their time. Yeah, you can't hear the audio. I'll put the videos in the show notes so people can watch them, the full lengths. But they're pretty calm, and they're just trying different things out. Like, just, let's pull from here, let's pull from there. Again, he's wearing chacos.
I'd almost initially maybe I don't know how deep the water is in there, but like the one guy looked like he was standing pretty securely. Just go in there. I'm a big fan of getting hands on boats. Sometimes you just go get in there. If it's not too deep and it's not too sketchy, just have everyone just get in there and try to lift up on it before you start doing all this other stuff with ropes and everything. Just like see if we can wiggle it around, lift it up, move it around. And maybe they already did that too.
I'm not into that.
Really?
Because they're having people stand in the river and moving current.
I mean, I had one flat wrap. This is again on Cherry Creek where we just literally got a bunch of people and just pick the boat up off the bottom of the river.
It depends on the situation, but that's a long throwback toss. So they tried pulling. You saw we were talking when they missed the first one, but like they tried pulling on it from their situation, and now again they're spanning the river with a rope, right? So they have to have an upstream spotter telling everybody, okay, nobody can go, and now they've closed off the rapid. Nobody's running Blossom Bar until this gets dealt with. And this is a several-hour project.
Yeah, Willie Bum Bum's right. There are a lot of ropes like around that guy's feet right now and stuff like that. It's a little,
No, they're going rope crazy, that's for sure. But going back to what you're saying, Aaron, I just think people standing and moving current, I'm not stoked on. I think in some situations, yeah, but this one's a little more dynamic. This isn't the safest part of the Rogue River. I have to say, like that, there's a lot of weird rocks down there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would agree. I think there's just, and maybe it's my respect for this rapid and knowing all the weird rocks here, but if I'm here right now, I'm nervous because I know people have died here in this exact spot. So I don't want to put people in the water if I don't have to. And yeah, there's just, you'd be at least up to your waist.
Yeah, like I said, I don't know how deep it is there, but I like that technique, and I like looking at that before you start. Like they got like multiple ropes pulling from all different directions. Just if you can get your hands on the boat, it's a good technique. And I feel like people are always like wanting to go ropes from shore and start pulling with ropes versus like, hey, like there's a loss of force versus if you get your hands straight on that boat and you start moving, shaking, and just wiggling it. Sometimes you can just get it moving a little bit, and it moves a little bit more. And like I said, maybe they tried that.
And you're saying there's a loss of force because they're stretching the rope.
You're stretching the rope, and your limited spots where you can put the force of that, where you can apply that force to the boat, where you can clip that rope on, where you can pull from. Like you just have different options. I mean, just think about like Zach, when you used to get perched on the Tuolumne, you get up in the river up to your waist all the time to push the boat off, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and thinking you just find that spot where you can get some good leverage and push off. And so, like, this guy probably did that. This guy probably did that initially.
Getting stuck in rock garden is different than this, right?
Yeah. Totally. Yeah, and I'm not saying just like, dive in there, go for it. I'm just saying, hey, that's a technique that needs to be looked at. And if you're that guy there, maybe you can wedge yourself on the rock, like sit down lower and push your feet. He probably already did that stuff. The guy whose boat it is, where he was sitting down in find a secure spot where you can sit and get your feet on that boat and start pushing it with your feet, from a secure spot maybe too. Not even necessarily getting in the water, but I'm just saying hands on the boat. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. No, because you lose like the rope stretches, so you lose force there right away, and your hands get tired, you get blisters, and boats have. And
then when you can get right on, a lot of times you can get it so you're just like. You're using your legs instead of your arms to pull, right? You're pushing with your feet, or you're pushing with you're putting your lower back into it. 3 hours of work. Ooh, wow.
Was that the end of the video? I feel like I thought in this video it came off.
It did.
Okay, we were just talking. I mean, I think there's a lot of comments we've kind of been going back and forth on here. So I think in this case, I don't want to get in the water, but I think you're right. And I think like when you drive a sweet boat, you learn your only option for getting that thing unstuck is to get in the water and use your legs. Like that's, you can't pull sweet boats off rocks. You learn techniques to pull your legs. And Tuolumne is a great place to learn this, like you mentioned, because you get stuck in these big gear boats and you have to get out and push. The current's too strong here, and it's a known dangerous place. So,
and that being said, you don't necessarily need to get in the water, but maybe you can be on a rock, sitting on a rock, get yourself, like he could wedge himself maybe where his legs are dangling down, get his butt in there, sit down somewhere secure and get his feet on that boat and really push hard with his feet too. So
but it depends on the person. Who is that guy, like an experienced river person with a proper PFD? Or is this just like Johnny that we brought on the trip? And we're like, hey, Johnny, jump in the river and you'll figure it out. So I think that's an important detail. Willie Bum says I 100% agree. Yeah. And I feel like watching these guys like they started slow. They like messed around here. They pulled on some things. They got ropes. They slowly then like, all right, we got to pull a rope from across the river to really pull this thing out. Going back to that, we'll get these questions in a second. I feel like it's pretty selfish to put the rope across the river for this. This is going to maybe take a while. Like they're basically saying, nobody's in danger here, right? Maybe you say, hey, you know what? Let's let river traffic go through until like 4 o'clock. And then let's do our massive across the river rescue.
And Zach, maybe they did. Maybe there aren't people waiting up above. Maybe they're like, hey, there's no one up here right now. Let's do it. And so, but they seem like I feel like the big thing is you never felt like the people were in an exposed position. We're like, oh, that looks sketchy. You know, like everything seemed controlled. They took their time, like you said, step by step, and they got the boat off. And yeah, it took 3 hours, but they got it off. So overall,
taking your time is big. And I think they slowly worked up to the thing. So I like that. Better idea what it'll take to. Yeah, when you start messing with it, you're like, oh, okay. Like when you get in there with your legs and you pull on it, does zero. Like ropes aren't going to help. Like if you can get a little wiggle, then you're like, all right, at least we have an idea of what's going on.
And then you're trying pushing different ways. So you first push like this, and you're pushing it. You know, you push the x-axis, then you push the y-axis, and you're like push up and down. Which way is the boat moving? And you can get it like Martin said, you can get a better feel. Yeah.
They're pulling from the downstream side of the rope.
So when it wraps around, I guess.
I'm not sure.
You know, like which side of the rope is the rope on you? So if something comes three, are you on the upstream side or are you on the downstream side of the rope?
Which rope? Is it the rope? Dustin, are you saying the people on the rock are downstream of this rope?
Yeah, I think as this comes out, the rope's coming around him. So he'd rather have them move to the right of the rope and have the rope to the left of them. So as they come off, the rope's all downstream of them, and they're less likely to get wrapped up in it.
Yeah, I think I think the point is you want to be in a position where when it comes off, you want to think about what's going to happen when it comes off, and is the rope going to mess with you?
That's a good point.
When the boat comes off, they're trapped in the rope. I didn't see it. Let's watch that again. There are ropes everywhere, and it's worth taking your time here and doing some rope management cleanup, right? Like whoever's in charge could be like, hey guys, let's just take 5 minutes, and the ropes we're not using, let's put them in throw bags, put them away. And the ropes that we are using, let's just be cautious of.
I wonder how the guy got off the rock afterwards. So yeah, the guy right there with the straw hat, he's downstream of the rope, like Dustin was saying.
Of which rope?
The rope he's pulling with his right arm. When that boat comes off, he's downstream of it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. That makes sense, Dustin.
And the other guy's got the rope wrapped around his hand. See that?
Yep.
Not
so they should step over the rope and be on the right side.
Yeah. And maybe don't wrap the rope around your hand.
Yeah.
It's probably a good practice.
Okay, so they saw him move a little bit there. So they're like, oh, yeah. That moved. Let's take he jumps on, it comes off.
Oh, he jumped on it, yeah. Yeah, I think Kevin's thing about deflating the downstream tube, potentially like the downstream, like from lookers, from the position of the camera, looking from the looker's camera, that right side, if it's the whole tube as one, yeah, you could deflate a little bit, and maybe it's wedged in there and it softens up a little bit and squeaks out. That's not a bad idea there, to soften a little bit, just to see if it's just wedged really tight.
That was a Sotar, and it's really a rigid typically. So it's like you're moving this rigid object against the rock. If you soften it up, it'll kind of hopefully slop next to the rock when it comes off.
Go like Zach, old low water, getting out of Tuolumne with no water idea. Just put it real soft, so just through everything, right?
What Aaron's talking about, we used to have to run gearboats out of the Tuolumne at like 200 CFS, and if you put you step on the boat and you'd your foot would hit the ground, it would just sort of like slop down the river and kind of go over things you didn't think were possible. Or you go into these channels wider, narrower in the boat, and the boat would just conform to the channel. You learn a lot from running low water like that. Yeah. Kind of like Middle Fork Deadhead. How do you get an 18-foot boat down the Middle Fork at 1.6 feet? You learn a lot of techniques, and one of them is just deflate it and you just slop over stuff.
Yeah, so Kevin's idea, yeah, I think there's some merit to that too, as an option to check out.
Well, that was fun. I think we probably should have started the show by letting everybody know that we are not swiftwater rescue instructors. We're not certified in any way to teach swiftwater rescue. We're just commenting on things that we see based on our experience. And so I feel like we feel comfortable with our level of experience dealing with this stuff to make comments about it. But, we're not official instructors. And I probably should have mentioned that earlier. So, for true professional advice, hit up your local swiftwater rescue instructor who can provide instruction and feedback on the stuff in the future.
Yeah, I feel like we more want to facilitate a dialogue about these things.
Yeah.
About what people are doing, what other people's thoughts are, what our thoughts are, what we see, what we've seen in the past. Not saying like, yeah, this is the way to do it, or this is the way to do it, and hopefully give you some things to think about and some things to consider going forward.
Yeah. And there's and pointing out some things like I really like on that flip, I really didn't like they were attached to the D rings, doing 3-to-1s. A 3-to-1 D ring, right? They should have gone to the frame. So just pointing out things like that hopefully those of us in the future can be like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. I can go to the frame in that example. And just techniques. Having more tools in your toolbox, I think is important. Like every situation is different. I think Dustin mentioned that. So every situation has different, rocks or eddies or whatever. So having a way to do things is good, but then like, oh, I know this one technique, let's try it out, I think is a nice thing to have for different situations.
I'm gonna say something I feel like people are much more interested in the wraps than the flips. Like no one really, we had like no comments about the flips of gearboats. No one here runs gearboats.
That's true. Is that true? I'm going back through the comments.
It was quiet. It was really quiet. And then
hey, Crazy Bill.
Yeah, Crazy Bill. Thank goodness for Crazy Bill. And there were a few comments.
Well, I mean, Aaron, I knew that. Going into that. Wraps are sexy. People love mechanical advantage. I think that people love. I was kind of kidding about how I like 3-to-1s because I like gear and stuff, but people do. People love pulleys and prussics and advanced techniques, and they like stuff, and they like plastered boats, and they like that stuff. So it's really fun. That's why I started with the flip. It was like, let's get a little bit of our broccoli before heading into the dessert. Like we could talk about wraps all day and it would just be fun and interesting. But also a lot of people, if a wrap happens, really have no idea what to do. They have zero ideas. Like they've heard about them and they fear them happening because they don't know what to do, how to handle it. And I think a lot of people like that content. Like a wrap, you can kind of figure, or a flip, you can kind of figure out. It's like, oh, we'll just do some things and it'll come over. Where a wrap, you maybe have zero ideas.
Well, so we kind of broke it down. We're like, okay, here's 3 ways that we know to flip wraps over, and you could really just know one of them and apply it to every situation, pretty much. Just get a store and flip it over. Like you could have, you can't just take one. You can't have one tool in your toolbox for wraps. You can't just be like, this is how I do every wrap. Well, with every gearboat flip, you can be like, this is how I do every gearboat flip, and you could do that. Like that's possible.
Yeah, I mean, your Illinois flip where we did your fancy like flip it over push thing, we could have let it float downstream for a mile and get beat up until we found an eddy.
Yeah.
Right. We could have done that. We could have pushed out the water and just like the oar locks would have been broken. We probably would have lost half the stuff. That was a technique that would have worked. But if it had wrapped there where you flipped, like one technique for pulling it off wouldn't have worked. That would have been a hard wrap to get off, actually, because I don't know how it'd pull. Luckily, it did flip. Luckily, it was a urethane boat. That might have wrapped an Avon.
I don't even think. I think it wouldn't have flipped if it was an Avon. I think it would have just stayed upright. I think that was part of the problem. It was that that stiff earth. It went over so quick. I was blown away. I was being really
I
casual,
wish I
actually. I didn't expect that.
But yeah, I think that, so that point is, I think that people comment on Raps because we have people here who have seen a lot of stuff and they have a lot to add, and I think, they have a lot of thoughts and people are picking up things to add. There's a lot of safety things that happen on Raps, right? Like there's people have too many ropes, or they, there's people have a lot to add, and there's a lot of people just have no idea, and it's good for them to hear. But I don't know what we're even talking about now. We're on like crazy tangent. Aaron, you're on mute. Aaron, you're on mute.
Yeah. We have problems finishing the show off. All right, that's what we got to work on, is having a clean ending, clean closure. Closure is challenging. So, hey, you guys who tuned in today, thanks for tuning in. Love your comments. As always, really appreciate it. You guys make us think, and it's always fun. Zach, enjoy being here with you. What you got a show on Monday going?
I can't remember. I think so. I should. I started this off by saying this is going to be awesome. We're awesome now, and we're not, because I forgot if I have a show Monday. I think so.
Well, Zach may or may not have a show on Monday that you can tune into. We'll be here again on next Friday, 12:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Please come back. If you guys are listening to this later on, please leave comments below. We'll look at your comments, and yeah, love seeing those comments. And then we love getting new videos. So if you guys have videos that you want to have us review, please, fire them. Let us know. Leave a comment down below, and or send us a link. So yeah, Zach, thanks a lot. And don't forget to like that like button, and please subscribe to help us take over the world of rafting on YouTube. And don't forget to ring the bell so you can get a notice anytime Zach puts anything new on YouTube.
Yep. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Aaron.
Yeah, thank you.